said I was going to do an art class for some of you guys. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a little study on the caribou. And we're going to use these 3 images to kind of get started here. But a lot of times I like to go to Google and just do an image search result and just sketch everything I see. Like, it's one of the things I do when I'm studying. But I want to go through this process a little bit and kind of show you how this actually works out. So what I'm going to do is copy that skull image. And when we come over here, I'm just going to Control V and paste it into here. And what we want to do is analyze things. So tools first, soft round brush, the airbrush here in Krita, default, right? We're going to turn the precision up so we can sketch with it smaller. We're going to hold shift and make it smaller as well. So like 8 pixels is pretty good for a soft round brush, but really you can use whatever size you want. You can definitely go through and practice with it a little bit to warm up, just very light, doing strokes very lightly, just to get kind of your hand calibrated, I guess, into that area. Now, here's the thing. When we're looking at something like this, we need to start breaking it down or simplifying it. And so when we're looking at these shapes in here, we can see there's like this, it's not quite a perfect circle, but let's just put a circle, okay? And this area back here, like, it's really crazy. Let's just put a circle or like an ellipse, something, and we can kind of average in on it a little bit. This area up here, we can use a line tool or you can freehand it. It's up to you. It's something like this, right? Like, it's kind of like a slanted rectangle, maybe, if we simplify it a bit. It's like a little bit of a triangular shape here towards the front. Okay. And so we're just going through this whole object, looking for these big ideas of these shapes. And like, the jaw is really long, but we can break it into subparts, perhaps, right? So blocking out more or less is what we're doing. 2D side view, this is about the way it goes a lot of times. So this front one will be slightly like that, maybe. This whole area, we'll just represent it like this for now, okay? And these back sections, yeah, we could use rectangles or little trapezoidal type shapes or whatever. And there's a little bit of an extension down here. I wouldn't do necessarily another circle for that, but I think you get the idea. So when we start doing this, like, what we're actually doing, or what we're going to discover at least, is a lot of times you hear like large, medium, small, using primary, secondary, tertiaries. What this is actually doing is it's a cluster. So it's a compound shape, right? And it's a bunch of smaller shapes. So it's a compound, right? We got ellipses and squares and whatever else. Great. Now, all of them combined together, that's a form of clustering. And this is what's probably a little confusing here, is that it's not refined yet. Like, we got a lot of ways to go with it to make it look better and more accurate. But all these these primary shapes, this ellipse, this, right? All those primary shapes clustered together, that creates your full primary. So you're kind of getting secondary shapes already off the bat is the main idea. So it's a compound. It's like a bit of large and medium, or your primary and secondary combined together, basically. It's one of those, along those lines there, if you want to look at it in that manner. You can see the teeth here a little bit more. They're not perfectly straight. They're kind of like in this area, right? Okay, so there we have that. Now, when you're doing your drawings, normally you don't trace over them, but you can do this to break them down. But when you're drawing later on, you're like, oh, the eye's kind of an ellipse now, right? Okay. So we make an ellipse, and then we got this weird ellipse back here. Okay. Let's try to get them about the right proportions. And then this thing here starts, I don't know, just below, not quite halfway, not quite at the top, just below. And it's pretty long. I don't know how long exactly, but we'll make it about yay big. All right. I think it might be too long now. Maybe we bring it back a little. We can use a lasso tool. You just press T and move it back. Not a big deal, right? We got a little piece up here. Continues to work out like so. Okay. Now, all we're looking for is like the sizing between things. We're trying to get that correct. Now, when you're drawing traditionally, you can just use your pencil to kind of like check it real quick on paper or whatever, if you're looking at it in a book or something, or even on the screen. You can measure it with your pencil and convert it to the size in paper very easily. But here we don't have that option as much. So we have to kind of figure out what we're doing here little by little. And we're placing markers, basically. This is a guide, is the way I look at it. Like, we're just creating a guide for ourselves to make a better thing later on. And so once we recognize that kind of, or once we get that kind of mindset anyways, like we're golden. You see where this is going? Like, we can start to imagine everything else we need to create, perhaps, in this area. Those teeth are going to go in here, right? So I'm not going to worry about that too much. We still want to get like kind of the right proportions down, and we got to erase something. We got to erase it. That's fine. But for the most part, this is going to end like right there, right? Something like that. And so we're close. We're not too far off. Like we're getting there, guys. Sometimes I'll skip the basic shape and I'll kind of go to a little bit more of a complex one. This is in the background back here. All right. And the skull actually rises up a little higher now, right? So you can see I was off. This is an important part of this process. Recognizing when you're off, like how high do we have to go between these two, right? It's not that much higher, but it's important to get it right. And we can start to go back and we can refine things now. We can say like this little piece pokes out and it cuts like this. And then this is more rounded. It's not that flat. So we can do that. And then we can erase this. Press E and use the eraser. The eye itself is not perfectly ellipsed. It's got like a flat spot here. It's got like a flat spot here and maybe a little one right here. And then these round out to all these different areas. That's the basic shape that it's creating anyways. So we can nail that in, and now we're going to refine more. So we know like right here, that's doing that number. We just represent that with a line first. That's our guideline. Some people call them seeking lines or whatever, but we could call it a guideline. We can see it comes up a little bit past the halfway point here. So it'll be a little bit higher. Still going to go out at a little angle like this. So we're a little bit off on our placement. But we can go back and chisel this up and create a more accurate edge now. And this is the trick to all of art right here. You do this very lightly traditionally with pencil, kind of like I am right now, right? And the reason being is that if you ever screw up really bad, you want to try to be purposeful with it, but if you ever screw up, you use normally an eraser and you can just knock things back a little bit. Right? Like it's getting too noisy in here. Just knock it back a little bit. You don't have to erase it fully, maybe. And then you can just keep going. At some point, traditional artists, there's a couple different techniques they might utilize. If they're doing pencil sketching, they'll go back and they'll just probably start shading on top of something like this and erasing where they need to. If they're doing ink, right? Like they're going to take it with pen and start doing it with pen. They might start with pencil and then go to ink. Something like comic book artists do. There's ways of refining all of this, basically. Like we can continue to refine it further into the future here to make it more and more accurate, basically. But that's all we're going to do is we're just going to play with these basic primitives. And now we're just going to start adding in all these little smaller details and try to get the bigger ones first, like the big things going, right? And we're going to try to get those going. And the little nuanced details to the silhouette can be extremely helpful. But whenever we're looking at this and we're like, hey, this rounds out a little bit more here, and then it cuts like this, that's what we're doing now, right? Like, it's like, where does it round out to? Right about the middle. So we want to just capture that curve a little bit more accurately. All right. And yeah, we're copying right now, guys. We are not doing anything fresh and new here. When you are studying real life, real world stuff, you don't have to copy. You could take photographs of things you find out in the wild, and you could study those. You can certainly find skulls of all kinds of things out there. Practice with some photographs you've taken and get better photographs. Or, you know, sit the thing in front of you if you have it, and then just sketch off of it. Something like that, maybe. Now, refining this edge here has some drawback because I still don't know about all these shapes in here if I got them quite right. Like this thickness here is going to be reliant off of like the spacing everywhere. So sometimes it's better to go through and just lightly do that still instead of doing it as heavy as I just did it. Because there's like a little bit of, there's like a triangle shape here almost, right? So once we do that, now we have a better placement of that in that area. And we'll be able to continue this process now through the whole thing, basically. This has a curve too at the front side, down to about those first teeth. This back side looks like it rounds right here. Okay. And so basically what you're going to do is you're going to do this. You're going to do studies like this of the anatomy. You don't even have to know the names of them technically. You just have to start doing it enough that you recognize what you're working on. When it comes to the bones, like this little piece here, this little piece there. If you learn the names of them, it might be helpful because if you ever have to explain it to another artist, you could be like this bone or that bone. And then that helps them out, you know, if you're going to work in like a team effort or whatever. Otherwise, you got to like show them the picture and show them what you're sketching real quick. And you're like, this thing here, you know? Yeah, that thing. This is a little narrow on ours, so I might be off here somewhere. There's a good odd chance this is not thick enough, I think. And if that's the case, it's also going the wrong way. That could be a problem. It's a little flatter right here. A little rounder right there. A little flatter right there. What is coming up over here, I think, is the back side. I think. And then the teeth, I'm just going to put a little rectangle to show the idea of the cluster of the teeth anyways. We would continue working this until we're happy with it, basically. We can do all the shading. We can do every additional little section, edge, little, like there's like a little rib to the top of the eye socket, right? A little extra piece of bone there. So you would start doing things like that. And if you do this enough times studying this, you can work this into hard surface stuff or hard surface design. There's some cool things to take note of, like overlaps, like this right there. So like there's no lines here, but it like overlaps. So we can incorporate those kinds of ideas into our drawing at some point, right? So you can see how that works out. Now, this is kind of just the fun way of doing this, right? Like a side orthographic image, playing around with proportions, shapes, and refinement. It's an iterative process. You go through this. It starts rough usually. You have to go through it and continue to work it until you're more and more precise. But you want to do those big things first before you move on to like shading necessarily or anything else. Because if you can't draw, you're going to have a hard time doing a lot of different things, basically. Or sketch, should I say. It's kind of the same deal, drawings and sketchings. It's depends on how you want to look at it, I guess. But the main thing is that you practice doing stuff like this. Because you can eventually start to, you know, get it all going. You can see like this is a little bit more extreme over here. So, you know, little things like that can come into play too. You know, maybe flatten that edge out a little and erase the top. Try to get it a little bit less dramatic in that area, maybe even round it a little bit different. You can see I'm going a little bit heavier. Not that I wanted to, but it's just sometimes you can get carried away. So be careful with that. You might want to knock it back a little bit with a soft eraser if you want to match the rest of it. Always a possibility. And this is why you do it in traditional with pencil. A lot of times you do very light strokes like this. You can see it's very blurry up close, but the main idea is that if we ever had to erase anything with traditional pencil, it's very light strokes. So you can go through with the eraser and actually get rid of everything. You might have like very, very faint ghost lines where it still shows up, but it's very, very subtle. And that's a good thing anyways. And then later on, these kind of soft features like this is still a shape technically right here, but you could do that with shading. So that's another advantage of the soft round brush. Sometimes you need sharp edges or hard edges, but you can shade with it very easily too. Sometimes you can use these as markers to tell if you have the right kind of dimensions for things, right? So like we know that this is going to go down, this is going to shade roughly that shape there, right? And so is this now falling off in the right area? Like, is this bending in the right area here? I feel like it should be a little bit up forward, a little bit further, right? Like it should be a little bit closer to here. And that would be, to me, a little bit more accurate, but I might have this shape being too long as well, right? So always trying to figure out like how long something is. You can always do a new layer if you really want to check this way. If you're doing exact like one-to-one replication anyways. And we can see how close we are. Not exactly there, right? But a lot of this is going to be off anyways because we're eyeballing it. But if you ever wanted to do one-to-one, that's how you could do things like that. I'm still going to move it forward a little bit. I think it just looks a little bit too far back. Maybe just a little bit. Oh, it's going the other way, like this. Okay. Yeah, and I think that's a little bit nicer now because of that. Get a little messy in there. We can knock it all back. Redo it if needed. See what I'm saying? I'm not worried about the curves just yet. I'm worried about getting everything into position. With about the right scale and size and everything else. A little thicker there. All right. And that's it. So you do this side views. Do it in perspective. I know it's hard to stomach that answer there, but you have to try doing turnarounds at some point where you're doing this from the front, right? I don't have any images of this thing from the front, so it's going to be really hard to do that. You need images of that potentially. Because I don't know anything of what's going on in the middle of this skull, right? Until I do a study and I do that. This is step one of creating any kind of awesome artwork. When you're doing any other image, like starting to do these studies of things, and then eventually you're able to like spin them out or whatever, but you can do this on any other image as well. You don't have to be as precise necessarily off the bat, but we can figure out like the overall kind of proportions of this, this caribou. And we can see there's like a little setup like this maybe, right? Maybe his head's a little bit longer. And that's what we're looking for. That's all that's mattering here. I know this is here. It's mostly rounded, so I'm just going to do a circle for it. I don't know what's going on in this area exactly, so maybe a big circle. You know, it's like there's like little ways of dealing with things sometimes, and this might be it. So now we're like, oh, we need a yay big circle down here, maybe a little bit bigger. We need a really large one over here that comes up over the head. So where's it even going over the head? It's like back here, up here. That's the top of that maybe. The bottom will be down here. So yeah, it's like way like this, right? It has a big curve, a little bit of a curve. This guy doing that. I like to mark the eyes sometimes. So like we know the eye socket area. Okay. The antlers, you do this the same way as we did before. When you draw a cylinder from the side, it usually turns into a square. So squares and cylinders are the same thing with no perspective. That's the main thing here to remember. So you can do these kind of like blocked out sections like this. You could do, you know, cylinders as well, but these are ellipses. So if you want to do ellipses, like you're doing it in perspective, you can also do that. But basically, we're looking at like the proportion here. Like how big is this compared to this area, or like how many heads do we have to go up? Maybe 4. So about that same size. Ellipses 4. So we can use these guides basically to get in the right territory. This one's going to come almost a full head forward. Actually, yeah, like way above the snout, actually. So more than a head forward. All of those are leaning forward. They're not going straight up. That's the problem. So there's like a base here. This goes up something like that. It's going to end up in this territory, probably into our other image. But it would be doing, yeah, something like this, but higher. So I don't want to draw into that other image, but you get the idea. Now this guy, you know, not quite straight out to the front, but close. And so you could probably eyeball that one, to be honest. And give it a little curve, and it's way out like that, right? So you see, practicing this on a regular, I kid you not, is going to be what improves you the most, right? Drawing in 3D. Not just recognizing shapes and simplification, but drawing in 3D. So at some point you got to figure like, I need to turn this head around somehow. You know, we got a bigger one and we got a smaller one. They're going to connect maybe towards the top, and at the bottom, it drops down a little bit somehow and does something like this. So now we got like our center points between these, like basically a circle or an ellipse. If it's perfectly spherical, would be something like this, right? We got our eyeballs. So we'll be able to figure out our symmetry lines and our eyeballs. So doing turnarounds of stuff like this can be super useful. I don't suspect this is a sphere, right? It's going to be more like an in perspective ellipse like this, and it's going to be more like this, okay? At some point, I think I'm off here on the position of it, but basically we would trace, or maybe not trace, but we would start to set this head more appropriately, which is a very strong angle here. But that would probably end up something like that at some point, right? Back to the main body or whatever. And we just want to make sure that we're getting our perspectives correct too at the same time. So you can do these guides like this very quickly. So that way we're not misaligning like the eyeballs or the antlers and things like that. You can see where, like if we had, well, maybe ears in this case, let's say it's a dog. But you see where if we took our time with this, we could start to do this same thing on a 3D image. We can do those turnarounds and start to work it all out, basically. So at some point, we'd have like the big shoulder blade area. And I'm doing that completely wrong, I'm sure, but I'm trying to rush it. I think you get the idea, right? Because we start to understand the skeletal structure, we can start to imagine like how this might pop out here a little and sink in. And then the eyeball would be more sideways facing because, well, we did an anatomy study or whatever. And then once again, you'd have like your nose area more than likely. And all of that fun stuff going on, right? They actually have ears down here, I guess. That's not the right shape. Yeah, it's definitely not the right shape, but I think you're getting the idea now. So if we have these big antlers, we got to realize like how far they're coming out and all that fun stuff like that. They actually curve outwards a little bit, so they don't go straight up. They go forward, but then they come out here. So they do something like this, maybe. Not quite to the center. And so this is where like those ellipses start to come into play. I think they work out better now than rectangles, but the main idea is you could start to do things like that. You could have this one come towards us in perspective. It actually might move towards us, become larger, and then dip back in and become smaller. It might even cover the eye depending on how you're looking at the guy. So all these fun things come into play. It gets very complicated in perspective. This is why for a lot of you guys, I'm telling you, listen, just do things in 2D at first. Practice drawing in perspective, cubes, ellipses, cylinders, trapezoids, all those fun things. Do that first because it's going to become much, much harder. And this will probably still have the same kind of converging. Like these should all converge to a point somewhere, right? And if we're going over the horizon line, it'll start to converge back down like this maybe, right? So, but because of that reason, these are almost flush with each other. And so if we poke that one out a little, this one could end up with a weird, really weird shape actually, depending on how we're looking at it. But we could definitely ellipse them out and continue with those converging points like so, right? Until we got like the symmetry in the middle and everything else going on. But that's it, right? So if you could start doing this, you go back and you clean it up if you have to, right? It's not the end of the world. It's not like you're always going to get things perfect the first time you do it or anything like that. You're definitely not, by the way. It takes lots and lots of brush strokes and studies to start doing things like this free-handed in perspective correctly, like Kim Jung-ji, right? That's not something you're going to do by accident. It's something that takes a long time to do. And so this is what happens. We start to refine our shapes later. And I don't have another image, guys. I'm literally, this is all it's all on my other screen. Okay. I don't have the details right, but I'm close-ish, maybe. So if I go look at other images as references while doing this, I could pull this off, right? I could make it look more photorealistic and everything if I wanted to, rather easily. And so we're in the ballpark, and that's the starting point for the most part. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get to that starting point. It helps out a lot to use these guidelines. And the way I like to work is very destructive, because later on you can always clean things up even further. You can re-sketch it if you still want it to look like a pencil or something like that. You can use a hard round brush or an opacity brush, perhaps, just something like that. You could do ink if you want to go through and ink things. You know, this is how comic book artists work. They go to that new layer. They might even use brush smoothing. I'm going to use Lazy Nizumi for brush smoothing. I haven't had it on the whole time. When you're free sketching, it's good to not use it. But later on, you can go back through and you can ink things by hand, or you could take it to like Adobe Illustrator or Affinity Designer and go ahead and illustrate it over there as well. So you'd be able to go back and just make, yeah, pretty much all these shape changes that you need, right? Probably at a larger resolution too. These are kind of like thumbnail size sketches, which are great. Like working low resolution for sketching is great usually. But when you do line art, you want to take it much higher resolution, depending on your project, where it's going to go, maybe double the resolution that you want to present it at anyways, right? With all that out of the way though, hopefully some of this makes sense when it comes to sketching and drawing. You see, like these are guides. You don't use those. If this was traditional pencil and you create guides or seeking lines and you do them very light, you can just erase them back out. It's not a big deal. It's going to be gone. Same with like this circle here, like all of this basically, right? So that's the good part. Now, this is where things split. Different artists work in different ways. I'm not going to do a full rendering video here. That's not the goal of this video. But what comes next is usually shading, okay? Black and white shading a lot of times. Then you move on to colors and highlights and reflections and whatever else you might end up doing, right? There's different ways of compositing things together. I just want to kind of go over one real quick here because it seems like it'd be a good idea. So you can get started with this. If you want a solid filled shape, usually you can use black or white or a mid-gray. Usually mid-gray usually works pretty well, but black or white would work as well. Any kind of fill basically would work here. We can use a hard round brush, and if we want brush smoothing, we can do that as well. And we just trace the outline. Okay, that's it. All we gotta do is trace this outline here in Krita anyways. I think Clip Studio, you can do fills with broken stuff. You might be able to get away with that here on this project. But you're going to do it kind of like by section a lot of times. You're going to create a composite. So you'll have like the main skull, then you'll have like maybe the jawbone, and then the background of the skull or whatever. So it'll be something like this first maybe. And you fill it. You use a fill bucket if you need to, or you hand fill it, or correct it if needed. So you'll get something like this going on basically. Okay, and we've created a solid silhouette is all I'm trying to get at here. This is great because now this piece, what happens here is we can Control-Shift-G it, create a clipping group. So we create a new layer with an alpha lock inside of a group. That's the one we just filled. Right now we can airbrush all day long if we wanted on this. And we can literally go to town with this piece and shade the heck out of it anyways. And take our time here, and it's going to be just like we were drawing basically. It's the same thing, more or less. And so if we're doing that on the wrong one. Sorry, guys. Mess up my own image real quick. Okay, now we want to do that on the alpha locked one. I don't know why I changed it. Okay, it doesn't go off the border. That's what alpha lock does. Now, you would want to do, I mean, you could do like hard shadows and lighting, but there's a good chance that all you want to do is maybe like, kind of like an ambient occlusion shading job almost. So you don't always want to go too crazy with it. And the lines themselves, at some point you get rid of them entirely if you're going to do like a full illustration, right? But you can leave them on for a little while as you're working. And then eventually you start to work with them off, or very, very faint. It could be useful. And you can use lassos in this process as well. So like, I know I want it darker in this area. The lasso tool in Krita does not have smoothing. Big problem in my opinion. But you can get Lazy Nezumi. You can use that and have some options set up so that you can use a little brush smoothing or a lot of brush smoothing. Because when you're shading, you don't want to use brush smoothing a whole lot. But when you are doing that lasso, you might want a lot of smoothing. So just set them up on shortcuts or hotkeys. It's helpful. But basically, you can see we can do things like this now. If I Control-Shift-I, that inverts. So I can go up here and shade this maybe lighter or something. And basically take your time through this. That's all I'm going to get to here. Use lasso. Go through, make it happen basically. You know, make some areas darker than others, or however it should be realistically put back together. Anyways, that's part of the jaw, by the way. I need to redo that, but yep, we can go through and make it happen basically. All right. Yeah, we can, you know, fade things in and out from each other and whatever, and eventually get rid of the lines. We'll have a proper illustration, hopefully, started underneath, and then we can just go in and tighten things up. A lot of times, using a small, soft round brush will turn it into a sharp brush. Okay, so working large to small can sometimes be very beneficial. You can use texture brushes or whatever else you choose to do when you're illustrating and all that fun stuff, right? So, but yeah, that's basic ideas here. Why am I sketching on this one? Uh-oh. This is a real problem, by the way. Lock it, right? Because I know I've changed a lot of stuff on this that isn't supposed to be there. You see? So let's unlock it. Fix it real quick. You want to make sure it's solidly filled too. We'll fix it real quick. And then now we'll lock it so we don't ever do that again, hopefully. And now we can work on this one. So next time we try, it's just going to say like, no, you know? That's the main thing. All right. This you can drop down for a bit. So you can still see them. They're there, and you can work with them maybe. As faint as you need them, basically. Some guys like to lasso everything to get those hard edges. It's really hard to get hard edges right with a soft round brush. So just keep that in mind. What do I have going on there? I might have sampled by accident. And they will do this all day long until they got a proper illustration. You can also use a smudge tool to go back and smudge it. Now, if you do this like this, you'll get some really stellar results. It takes time. It doesn't happen instantly. The better you get at shading, the faster it goes, generally speaking. There's cheaper ways of shading and coloring and texturing and all that work out much faster even than this. But this will give you some really nice results potentially. Just a soft round brush is really all you need to create really awesome digital art, especially if you take the time to pin in all the texture and all that other fun stuff. So, but you know, it doesn't stop you from using splatter brushes and things like that as well, or photos. You can throw photos on this for texture and whatever else you want to do. And I'm losing my shapes here because I don't think that's strong enough anymore. I don't know what I'm doing exactly in those areas. I didn't detail it enough to begin with anyways, but yeah, so that's kind of the idea, guys. Like, you can do this, okay? It's really this simple. You study, you draw, you study, you draw. You do this every day. It's a lot of fun. And at some point, when you see me doing these like sketches and I'm just kind of doodling, doing numbers like this all day, hard surface stuff or organic stuff, and what I'm doing is just working in perspective a lot of times. So vanishing point 1, vanishing point 2, right? They cross. Usually you can do 2 edges if you need to. Creates a plane. Right? Planes have tops and bottoms, and now you have more or less, if you go from here anyways, right? You have your symmetry line, and you got your XYZ gizmo from 3D software. If all of these are converging back, you have basically what we were doing earlier. So you can create a plane, converge them. These two need to converge. Okay. And now this is a little bit tricky because it's at an angle now, but basically up and down through this plane. It's like creating a normal in 3D software, right? It'd be something like this. Another gizmo, but it's at an angle now. All right. So if you just start with this kind of shape with a straight up section, and eventually imagine everything else converging somewhere way back there. That's your center point. You don't have to go through the plane and draw in a box and all that other fun stuff. That's what's going on there, right? Eventually that all becomes three-dimensional. So if you make a plane here, or and then we make a plane here, and they're all converging at the right areas, it's going to look three-dimensional, right? It's a cube, rectangle, or whatever. Draw this up, bring this down, back to the center. Okay, that's a cross section. You can do cross sections anywhere. We can round this whole area, round this whole area. You see, you have to learn how to do these basic drawing in perspective shapes because you might need them. Who knows? You actually might need them. We know that this is going to be up here now. It still needs to converge, right? This will be still straight. This is still going to have kind of a similar kind of arc here. There's ways of making that more accurate by making the cross section in a rectangle and having actual vanishing points, but we can eyeball it. It'll probably come out close enough. If not, we can fix it. And that's all we do, guys. And now we're doing shape breakup, and we're creating clusters, and we're doing them in 3D, and you can draw in 3D. That's what I'm getting at. That's the main thing here. Like this one needs to go to here, maybe. Okay. How do we know if these line up correctly? We have to set them up correctly. Okay. But that's how you create compound shapes and forms and everything else in 3D, in 2D, by playing with these edges and these lines. You'll notice something here very quickly. This is literally no different than drawing over here. It's just we're using vanishing points as part of that process now. Like that's it. That's all it is. It's just extra. It's vanishing points. I mean, I don't know how else to put that. It's a lot of fun though. Once you get to the point where you're really happy with a sketch or a drawing, where you know what you want to do, you can shade it, you can color it, you can paint over it, you can do whatever you want from there. All kinds of different strategies if you want to go back and ink it, etc., or fill it, so on and so forth, and do compositing. Drawing is the key to all that. Now in 3D, it's the same thing. You make these shapes as blockouts first, you refine them, and then you combine them together, and then you make sure the topology works. It's the same idea. The only difference is you're playing around with the vertices, faces, edges, and everything else. And so if you're trying to design something in 3D, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just harder to do because you have to deal with vertices, edges, and stuff. If you're designing in 2D, it's going to be much easier. Take your time sketching and drawing and really putting time and effort into it. You'll improve dramatically as you look at references, do studies, draw, and sketch more than anything else, right? All that other stuff is kind of like process. Like once you start learning how to do that, anybody can do it, really. A lot of people do it for fun after work, and they buy adult coloring books. Guess what they're doing a lot of times? They might be doing some shading or just pure coloring, but they're still basically going to do what you're going to do later on. They're working in the lines. So when you can sketch something and then ink it, you're more or less creating your own coloring book. That's another way of looking at it. So learn to do that, and you could create any imagery you want in the world. That's the coolest thing about it, right? You could draw things in all kinds of crazy perspectives, different vanishing points, because you know how to control the shapes, the forms. Huge part of drawing. I cannot overstate this enough. If you don't do anything with the art fundamentals other than drawing, sketching, drawing, and doing studies of anatomy or shapes or forms or real life objects, you will become a very, very strong artist from that alone. You don't have to know anything about color theory necessarily right off the bat. Even like composition can kind of be important because you're looking at clustering of shapes if you're designing something. But if you're recreating something from real world, like caribou, there's a cluster going on here for skull. And then every skull has a different kind of cluster going on. Some are very similar, but you can see like every image is going to have some type of like combination of shapes or forms or volumes. It's just how it kind of like real life is the best teacher. If I could. So I didn't learn with composition, right? Like that wasn't a big part of anything I learned when I was learning art. I worried about creating what I seen, not what I thought it was. Like I see an eyeball thing. I think it's an ellipse, but it's really not. It's kind of like 3 straight edges with some rounded sections. And so stop looking at what you think it is and start looking at what it actually is. If you have to turn an image upside down and draw it from that, you can do that as well. That's another good exercise. But the more you do this, the better you get at it. I'm telling you. So nothing what I'm doing here is real special. It's something you practice, you do regularly. You can't skip really like you're not going to get better at it if you don't do it, right? But over time, as you just sketch more and do more studies, you'll pick up such a large library of shapes and forms and how things connect together and work and how they balance and off real world stuff. Just, you don't even have to design or create anything right away. You can do it. And, so yeah, I mean, you guys, you know, there's a lot of pressure in the world these days with like art and AI and jobs in it. Don't worry about that. Work any stupid regular job, practice your skills, get really good at them, and then just push yourself. I mean, it's for you. Who cares what the rest of the world does? Half the world smokes crack. I don't care that they do that. So that's on them. But, you know, this is the thing, man. Have fun. It's supposed to be enjoyable. Put on some music, relax at the end of the day after, you know, working a hard day or something. You don't need necessarily to go to art school to start doing this, right? And then you can evolve from this point to wherever you want to go, and just become a monster when it comes to creating drawings or sketches or full-on illustrations or painting. I mean, you can take all this to traditional too. Like if you're going to draw and sketch, that's part of creating a painting, because you're just doing the same thing. You're going to go over it and color over it with paints a lot of times, right? So you're going to sketch on the canvas first, and then you can just color it in and treat it like a coloring book. It's the secret to everything. Is sketching, not even doing like perfect drawing, right? Like it doesn't have to be like 100% accurate, like photo forensics or something, you know, like just get it close enough. That's all that matters, where it doesn't look wrong necessarily at first glance, right? And then you could spin it later on to your own artistic style. If you want to go all Picasso with whatever you create, you know, go for it. Nobody's going to question you when you do it on purpose, right? But it's when you don't do it on purpose and then all your images come out a little bit wonky looking, that can cause you a little bit of problems. And I like creating wonky images. I think they're more fun, but maybe that's not everybody's cup of tea. If you ask professional artists, that of course they're going to say, "What the heck are you doing?" But you know, at the end of the day, art is there's a lot of art out there. There's tons of stuff to consume. Your art is your art, and you do what you love and you enjoy. It's because it's for you. It's therapeutic or it's fun. It's, you know, don't let the world don't let the world influence and affect you in the ways you don't want it to, right? Even in the worst of situations, like try to still remain true to like your ideals and things, and don't let everybody bully you around and all that, right? So anyways, this is this is drawing, I guess, 101. So hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll check you out on the next one.